What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to my top 20 NES games. Let's get to it right now. All right, so coming in at number 10 is a game I ended up receiving from my buddy Virtual Bros for Christmas. Did a Secret Santa thing, and he bought me Chrysalis, however you want to pronounce it. Great action RPG. I know a lot of people will compare this one to Zelda. I actually compare it more to Ys, but honestly, it's its own game, and it's a great one. Now, you have to get certain items to progress through different areas, and there is some backtracking, there is some grinding. This is one I do need to get back to because I had taken a little bit of break just because of grinding. I had to stop after a while. I'm getting close to the end, but it's a game that if you haven't tried out, you definitely have to. And I don't think it goes for that much, I'm not sure, but I was fortunate enough that he got me a complete in-box copy. The manual has paid off in spades because the manuals back then, I mean, they definitely helped you out, telling you what the items do, some tips within the game. So I'm very grateful for that because I'm not going to look it up online. I want to, just immerse myself in the experience, get the most out of the game by just finding things out on my own, really enjoying the game, because really that's what it's all about, and how you maximize the fun of your games is really trying to figure it out on your own, not looking things up, in my opinion, just my opinion. But that is coming in at number 10. So coming in at number 9, a little bit of story here. So for those who know what video rental stores are, great. Anybody for the younger generation, if you don't know, movies, you had a couple of choices. You could go to the movie theater, or if it was out of the theater, you could buy like a VHS or a Laserdisc. Wasn't always the cheapest way to go about it, but video stores started popping up, and that gave you an opportunity at least to check out the movie and watch it for a price. You could do it for an overnight, a really cheap price, rent it overnight or for the weekend. Well, they started incorporating video games into rental stores, which was great because then if you figured, oh, I get to try this game out before I buy it and commit to it, and if I don't like it, I wasted my money. But one thing that our video store did too, as well, is they would actually rent out systems, and they had the NES, and it was a huge deposit. And you get it back as long as you gave the system back. But my dad surprised us one weekend, and he had the NES, and he had 2 games, and one of the 2 games that he rented was RC ProAm. Now, this game, I like it. It's a lot of fun. When we rented the system, the games, we had people over trying it out and all that, and right, share the wealth. And it was funny because one of our childhood friends was like, he's like,
wait a minute, wait, I can't get out of,
moving the controller because he could move the car, and but it was funny. It was a great memory, and it's a great game. I still like popping in the Nintendo, playing it. If you spell out Nintendo, then you can change your car. You can make upgrades to your car, your remote control car, and you can also buy weapons like bombs and missiles that you can fire at opponents. I think it's a fun game. It's a quick and easy play, and it's fun, I think. And so that is coming in at number 9. So coming in at number 8, now this is one that really introduced me to a genre, and one that was my favorite in my teens, with Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy VI, and Final Fantasy VII later on. And that is none other than the original Final Fantasy. Now I have this compilation. This is Final Fantasy 1 through 3, English dubbed, just because when game prices were exploding, I actually sold my complete in box copy of Final Fantasy for quite a bit of money. And so I was able, I figured I saw this, so it made that kind of sell really easy. Haven't regretted it because I do have a way of playing it. And I'll be honest with you, just because of the way, you know, the graphics, the music, and the gameplay really haven't aged that well on the NES. If I play Final Fantasy, it's honestly on the anthology one with Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 1 with the upgraded graphics, music, and gameplay. It's just more enjoyable experience, unfortunately, with this. But I have to mention it because it was you know, it introduced me to a genre that I love even to this day. So yeah, Final Fantasy for the NES. So coming in at number 7, we have one, they made a movie about it, The Wizard, and you probably know what I'm talking about now, and that is none other than Super Mario Brothers 3. Now this is one that we rented, well, saw the movie, you know, we rented it, and it was pretty much one of the games that we bought. Our family had, and we bought, and there's not much I can say about this game that already hasn't been said. It's still a lot of fun to play. It is a longer game though, and especially not for having save states. You definitely want the warping abilities so you can kind of go through the game quicker, but because it is a long game to play, at once. But still a lot of fun. It introduced, I mean, it was such a huge upgrade to Mario Brothers 1. I do love Mario Brothers 2, but that really wasn't my cousin that lived down the road that I'll mention quite a bit. He like the one that we played the World Championship Wrestling with. I played World Championship Wrestling with. Like that was his like jam. Like he was really good at Mario 2, and I watched him beat it. And it was not one that I got into, but I really appreciate and I love, and I do own. But I would have to say Mario Brothers 3 for me. And so this was a huge upgrade for 1, and it's still fun. I can still put it in the Nintendo and play. Still have a lot of fun with it. Now this next one may be controversial because we really technically didn't get it for the NES in the US, but it was for the Famicom, and it's a shame that it didn't come on to the NES, and that is Final Fantasy 3. Now I first played this game though on my iPhone, and I had to, and one reason why too I wanted to buy this is because of Final Fantasy 3. I wanted to play the 8-bit version. The 8-bit version, of course, English dubbed, because I don't know Japanese. And it just really actually struck me. I'm like, man, this was actually really kind of revolutionary for the NES and the 8-bit in terms of, it was the first RPG that I played, or that I know of in the 8-bit era, where you could, you know, change your characters. Like you had jobs, like you get the pieces of crystal, you could change what your character was. And so, you know, if you want to be the warrior at one point, the thief, or the you know, the white mage, red mage, black mage, whatever it was, you could do that. And I just thought it was really cool. It was not easy. I would say Final Fantasy 2 is tougher than Final Fantasy 3, but Final Fantasy 3 was not easy. It really, really ramps up. The last boss to Final Fantasy 2 and 3 are very tough. And so, maybe controversial here, but it just, what I thought that what it allowed you to do with your characters was something that I hadn't experienced before. And the fact that they did that with the Famicom, I thought it was cool. I thought it was a cool idea, and so I appreciate that. So I am putting this at my number 6. You tell me what you think about that. I like it. I do. So coming in at number 5, that second game that my dad rented for the NES when he rented the NES for us, and that is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Now this was one that it was just mind-blowing when you played it. It was just like, whoa, because my dad was into watching boxing, so I really got to know Tyson and what he was able to do. And honestly, when he lost to Buster Douglas, like, I think that was a blow to I know a lot of people that I know, and even me as a kid, I was like, man, because this guy Mike Tyson just seemed so unbeatable. Everybody just was like, I mean, he beat people before they even walked into the ring. Everybody was so intimidated by him. And this game just it's a lot of fun. I'm digressing, but this game was a lot of fun to play. And even back then, even when we didn't know what we were doing, you know, trying to figure out like the patterns and how to beat the characters, I don't think, at least when we rented it, I don't know if there were many people that made it past the minor circuit. But yeah, but my cousin, the one that, you know, played World Championship Wrestling with, that lived down the road, he was the first one to beat this game because he owned this game. He would come to own this game, and he was the first one to beat Tyson. And it was just like, whoa, you know, it was incredible. It was like this, oh my gosh moment, because Tyson was just, I mean, especially that first minute and a half, you know, you just thought he was unbeatable. And when he beat him, it was just like, you know, it was like crazy. And I always remember too, like this thing, like, you know, talking about getting to 99-0, how, you know, how crazy that would be. And so in like 2007, we were gonna have a joint yard sale with my mom and my stepfather, and he was selling his Nintendo that he had. He was gonna sell it for $1, and this was before the yard sale started. I'm like, oh, I'll take that, and so I gave him $1. And a local store, Bull Moose Music, they started really kind of introducing more media into their store, and video games was one of them. And this was kind of the start of it. They would have NES games, and they'd have them in this bin, and it was like across the board like $4 or $5 each game. And so I bought Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for $5. I bought Dragon Warrior 3, $5. Dragon Warrior 4, $5. These aren't games that you'd find that for $5 anymore. But and like Super Spike V-Ball, just a lot of them. Mario Brothers, Mario Bros. 3, all kinds of games anyway. And so, and it was really kind of good to kind of build a collection. But this was one where I bought and I started that kind of quest of 99-0. And so I kept a notebook, which I'll show some B-roll of that, of like the different codes. I'm like, I'm gonna start this. And so basically you get to the point where you make it through all the characters and you get to Tyson, and then basically what you're doing is you're just fighting Macho Man and Mike Tyson, Macho Man, Mike Tyson, Macho Man, Mike Tyson. So you get really good at fighting those two characters. And I did make it to 99-0, and I did have a video on that, and I actually made this kind of cool Mike Tyson's video while I was playing Eye of the Tiger, Survivor's Eye of the Tiger, with guitar and bass. But unfortunately, that was on my old channel, and I don't have that video anymore, unfortunately. So I wish I would have kept that, just because it was kind of a cool moment. And I told my cousin about that when I actually did it, and I showed him the notebook. And so, like, kind of childhood quest, you know, conquered, completed. So it was kind of cool. I thought it was, and it was just a kind of added kind of cool thing. But yeah, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Love this game. It's always fun. It's always fun. You all know that. I mean, you guys played it. It's okay. Coming in at number 4. Now, as we know, arcade ports usually don't translate that well over to console. I mean, there are some that really do. You know, honestly, I thought like the original Mortal Kombat was good. Mercs, I feel like, was good. A little bit different, but good. I mean, you have your games that are, and this is one that, in the 8-bit era, was amazing. It was like, man, this actually does feel like the arcade. There were some things different. There was an added level and some differences, but it really kept the spirit of the arcade. And it was one that, you know, you'd go to the arcade, you play, you and a buddy would be playing, and then like 2 randos would come in or cycle through playing the game. And that is none other than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Arcade. This is one that is still a lot of fun to play, and definitely recommend. If you haven't played it in a while, it's worth picking up. I don't think it's that much, and it's worth the price of admission. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't. And I was always impressed with this game. I still love it. So yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. And this is one that too my cousin down the road owned. The one that owned Punch Out, the one we played WCW. And so I would always borrow this, you know, like you would do as kids. Like you'd always borrow each other's games. And this is one I would borrow constantly, and still love this game. So yeah, coming in at number 4. So coming in at number 3 is The Adventures of Link. This is one I grew up with. I bought it when it came out. Well, not when it came out. I actually bought the second release. This is the first release with the gold cart. I actually waited until the second release, where I should have brought it, but it doesn't have. This is covered, and it's so you can't see the cartridge because it's a gray cart. So that's the one that I actually got. So that was the second running of the game. So later on in its life, but it was one that I really enjoyed. I had rented it back in the day. I did wait to buy it just because, you know, how things are. Sometimes you can't buy things right away. So I did, and it was one that I really enjoyed. It was a game that I thought was an upgrade from the original, the fact that you could actually go into villages and towns and do things within the towns, which I thought was really cool. Of course, it gets away from the top-down view, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was a great game. I still love it. I mean, it was honestly a lot harder, especially when you get into the later levels than the first one. So it was difficult for me. It was a struggle for me growing up, but it was a game that I never quit at, and I loved it. And so it is always one that I love going back to. I don't get back to it much, but I do play it from here and here and there because I do love the game. So yeah, Adventures of Link coming in at number 3. So all right, so coming in at number 2, kind of getting back to the story of the video rental stores. Now, again, you could at least rent a game. If you were fortunate enough, you could actually, the video store would, fortunately but unfortunately, cut the back of the box, and they would put it inside. Like they'd have these hard shell cases that they would put the games to protect them, and sometimes they would have like either the cover or the back on them, and that way you could kind of view what the gameplay was like, because of course, again, this is time pre-internet. You couldn't really find out what the game was about except for like Nintendo Power, but I never really bought that magazine. So you were limited to a lot of times the label on the game. Sometimes, you really, unfortunately, it either ruined your weekend or made it great. And fortunately, I saw this game. I was like, man, I took a chance on it because I thought the label on the game looked really cool, and it was such a pleasant surprise and became one of my favorite NES games. And I always remember, when that rental store went out of business and sold their inventory, I actually bought that game. And this game that I'm talking about is none other than the Guardian Legend. It's a great combination of a shoot 'em up and action adventure game. I love how they do that, how they mix them up in the game. You can get power-ups, weapon upgrades, and it really ramps up as the game goes along. So it kind of, easy at first, but gets harder as you go along, which I think it does a great job of doing that. And it does it in I feel like in a fair manner. And so I can't call this a hidden gem or one that people probably haven't heard of, because at this point on the internet I have seen this game pop up quite a bit, so that's a good thing, because I think everybody should enjoy this game. Try it out. I don't think it's that expensive. Hopefully it's not, because it's well worth a playthrough, and I've always enjoyed playing this game. I still play it. It's still a lot of fun. It is difficult towards the end, but it's worth playing through. So yeah, The Guardian Legend, definitely check it out. Now, last but not least, of course, people who know me know what this game is, and it's going to be no surprises, and that is The Legend of Zelda, the original. And back in the day, I did buy the gold cartridge. Now, story about this game for me is that, like, at the time I had an Atari 2600. That's all I knew existed until you know, I had a babysitter. Her youngest son actually had the Sega Master System, and he had Wonder Boy and Monster Land, and that was really my introduction to the 8-bit era and action adventure games, kind of action adventure RPG game. And I love that game. I still love that game. But the Sega Master System wasn't something that you saw a lot of, and I didn't really know much about it or how to get my hands on one, because I'm just a kid at this point. But I love that. Love that game, love that system. But next door, their next door neighbor, they had a boy that was a couple years younger than me, so I would always go over there, hang out with him, and play with him. And he had the NES. The first game I played for the NES was Rygar, and I saw in his kind of collection of games this gold cartridge. I'm like, ooh, what is that? And when he put that game in and we started playing, it was amazing. You know, you had this open world. You're fighting these different enemies, going into these different dungeons, and collecting these items, and going through the game. And it was just like a new experience, and this like this whole kind of experience. And so that winter we ended up getting the NES for Christmas, and my birthday is in February, so I had saved up my birthday money, and my mom and dad chipped in for the rest. And I remember going to Toys R Us, and now in Toys R Us they would have this wall of like these tags, plastic tabs that had like the cover, and then you flip it up and you could see like the back side to learn more about the game. And then underneath there was a slip cover that had like pieces of paper that had the barcode, the price or whatever, and you would grab that piece of paper, go to the cashier, pay for it, go past the cashier. I remember going to the right, and there was this kind of built-in area, and it had like a door, a window, and there'd be somebody in there, so you'd hand them the slip and you would get your game. And I just remember multiple times, you know, anytime you had to go use the restroom or the bathroom, you'd be in there with the manual, reading up on the, you know, the tips and tricks, or you'd be reading up on the lore of Zelda. And I just had a great experience with that game, and played it a ton, both quests, and I still play both quests once or twice a year. As you can tell, like, I have the No Death quest 1 and 2 that is on original hardware, and I still love the game. I still have a lot of fun with it, and so it's just one that's always near and dear to me in terms of gaming. And so was the NES, and you can tell by these top 20 games, I do have a lot of love for the system. I love to hear what your guys' top 10s are for Nintendo games, because there's usually an experience or a story behind them, behind the games. So have to thank Back in the Day Gamer for doing this, because it kind of struck a chord with me, and I don't know. I'm actually thinking about doing other systems as well. Probably not top 20, but with the other systems, but definitely top 10. We'll see how that goes and where that goes. But yeah, that's going to do it for my list. That's going to do it for me tonight. And until next time, we'll see you. Bye.